Despite the fact that no lightsabers actually collide, this is the best lightsaber fight in the sequel trilogy and one of the most thematically powerful lightsaber fights in all of Star Wars. So for everyone who did not immediately click off this video, this is my response to Nando v Movie's One Last Scene prompt, an idea where you take the last scene of something and you break down why it's so powerful. He also emphasized it doesn't actually have to be the last scene of the movie, just a last scene of some kind. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. So I want to talk about one of the most memorable moments from Disney Star Wars, the ending of Luke Skywalker's story in his final confrontation with Kylo Ren. But first for some context, because the feud between Luke and Kylo goes back well before the timeline of this movie. So some years before the sequel trilogy began, Luke Skywalker had begun a new generation of Jedi. He was training some younglings to try to bring back the Jedi Order. And Han and Leia's son, Ben, was one of these students. And Ben showed great proficiency with the Force. He was better than his classmates in pretty much everything he did and displayed massive amounts of raw power.
I've seen this raw strength only once before. It didn't scare me enough then. It does now.
Power that would later be corrupted by Supreme Leader Snoke, who's actually Palpatine, but we're not here to talk about whatever that movie was. And because Luke has seen what can happen when a very powerful Jedi is corrupted, his instincts got the better of him for a brief moment, leading to him igniting his lightsaber in what is easily the most misinterpreted scene of maybe anything ever. But he immediately regretted it, but not before a young Ben Solo had seen that Luke had ignited his lightsaber, ignited his own in self-defense, incapacitated Luke, destroyed the temple, and killed most of the students inside. And in an attempt to stop what his father did, Luke recreated it. This led to the spiral of Ben Solo, with him becoming a Knight of Ren, leading the Knights of Ren, becoming a member of the First Order, one of the most high-up members of the First Order, and eventually killing his father so that he can take that one step further into the dark. So at this point in the movie, this is Ben Solo at his most corrupted. This is Ben Solo at his most evil. As for Luke, he felt that he failed the galaxy, which he kind of did. So he went to a remote world called Octu and went to an island to die in exile, refusing to rejoin the fight. He wants the Jedi Order to end. He refuses to help Rey when she comes to him for help. This is Luke at his lowest. While all of this stuff with Rey and Luke is happening, the First Order has the Resistance fighting for survival. Leadership has been killed. Leia is the sole surviving member from an explosion on the bridge, but she's in a coma. Everyone else who's high up in the ranks is at odds with each other. Finn and Rose have disappeared to go try to find help, and only a few ships remain as the First Order begins an endless barrage on what's left of the Resistance. This eventually leads to only a few transport ships surviving and making it to the planet's surface on Crate, where they are attacked and go to battle one last time with the First Order. But they lose this battle, and they are cornered inside the base that only has one way out. There are maybe 14 members of the Resistance who are still left alive. And just in the nick of time, when even Princess Leia herself has given up this fight, Luke Skywalker comes to the Resistance's aid. But he looks different. He's slightly younger, his hair's darker, he's wearing different robes. He came from a place that wasn't the main entrance, and C-3PO has already pointed out that the only way in and out of the base is through the main entrance. In a very brief conversation with his sister that never fails to bring a tear to my eye, Luke says that he's beyond saving Ben and he has to face him. Worth noting, Luke never once says that he is going to kill Ben. But upon seeing him, Kylo orders a barrage of every single gun the First Order has to fire at Luke Skywalker, scarring the salt fields of Crate, but leaving Luke suspiciously unharmed. And with Luke surviving that, Kylo does the only thing he can think to do. So Luke ignites his as well, but it's his father's lightsaber. It's not the green lightsaber that he used as a Jedi. But also, the lightsaber he's using broke in this movie. We all saw that, right? Kylo and Rey split it in half. I think The Last Jedi visually is one of the best Star Wars movies, and at this scene is when I think it peaks in terms of visuals. Kylo scarred the fields of Crate, leaving this red hellscape. But when Luke ignites his lightsaber, the white starts to rain back down and restore that purity look to the planet. The bad guy brings red, the good guy brings white. And the reason behind Luke's physical appearance brings weight as well. Rian Johnson said this was an intentional decision by Luke to affect Kylo Ren as best he could. The hair and the look is something that Ben would be familiar with from the night he felt betrayed and destroyed the temple. And the lightsaber Luke is wielding is the one that Kylo believes to be his birthright. Kylo never saw the saber break. Kylo saw a flash and he woke up and Rey was gone. He didn't know the lightsaber broke in half. So Kylo sees a younger Luke that he recognizes wielding the lightsaber that he firmly believes he deserves, and it makes him angry and enraged and taken over by his emotions. And to play into Kylo's emotions that much more, Kylo fully expected Luke to show up and attempt to redeem him. So Luke saying
No.
just fuels that rage even more. So naturally, Ben Solo is at his most angry, and that is exactly what Luke wants. This fight flips a lot of other duels on their heads, most notably something like The Empire Strikes Back, where you have Luke going into that duel as the overconfident one and playing right into what Vader wants. In this one, it's flipped, with Luke now being the master and getting Kylo exactly where he wants him. The moment Luke Skywalker walked onto that battlefield, he won the fight. The fight itself is short, with Kylo Ren charging at Luke over and over and Luke dodging every attack with ease, never once raising his own saber. But because of the way this movie is edited together, this fight cuts between the Resistance escaping, showing that as Luke holds Kylo off, the Resistance gets closer and closer to survival until they reach a barrier that they cannot get through, setting up the mission that Rey now has to go on. And all of this shows that Luke is on a more important mission. He's not here to kill anyone. He's here to save everyone. And Rian Johnson, being the artist he is, crafts in so many hints that Luke Skywalker is not actually there. Besides his younger look and the fact that he's wielding a broken lightsaber, none of the salt lands on him. He doesn't make any footprints like Kylo does. He refuses to actually fight back. He came in through a part of the base that does not have an entrance. And lastly, and most obviously, Kylo goes right through him. And what I love most about this is that where many blockbusters would hide their epic reveals until the reveal itself to build as much audience hype as possible, from the moment Luke shows up, you can piece together that he's an illusion. They didn't sacrifice story for hype. I really wish more movies would take note of this. But back to what's actually happening on screen. The actual meat and potatoes of this fight is not the fight itself, it's the conversation that stems from it. Because once Luke and Kylo have both returned to where they started the fight, showing that Kylo has made no progress whatsoever, they exchange some words. And because he's trying to cut straight to Kylo's emotions, Luke says exactly what Kylo wants to hear.
I failed you, Ben. I'm sorry. I'm sure you are.
Words that Luke actually believes. He's not lying to anyone in this movie, but also words that would hit Kylo right where they need to. And the response to this shows Kylo's clouded judgment of the world. It shows how far gone he is in this moment. Because again, Luke has already won the fight, but Kylo refuses to see that.
The Resistance is dead. The war is over. And when I kill you, I will have killed the last Jedi.
The Last Jedi spends the entire movie building up to this final fight and this clash of perspectives that Luke and his nephew have. It all leads back to what the theme of the movie is and what those correct and incorrect interpretations of those themes are. Kylo's let the past die mindset, which people seem to think is the theme of the movie when it's not at all, is what fuels his thoughts in this moment. Seeing everything he has done as what needs to be done so that the world can continue. This is a similar mindset that Luke has for most of the movie, until he's straightened out by a conversation with Yoda, in which he learns the real messages of the movie.
Yes, failure most of all. The greatest teacher. Failure is. We are what they grow beyond. That is the true burden of all masters.
Since Luke has learned his final lesson, he is able to echo that to Kylo Ren. This trilogy is not about Luke Skywalker. It was never about Luke Skywalker. That was clear from the moment we saw the first trailer for The Force Awakens, and Luke Skywalker was nowhere in sight. This trilogy was always about Rey. And this scene is Luke passing the legacy of the Jedi on to Rey. The thing he has most wanted to end this entire movie is now the thing he is passing on. It is the greatest lesson that Luke Skywalker ever learned, and the greatest lesson that Luke Skywalker ever taught. The scene is edited together beautifully, cutting Luke's dialogue with Rey saving the Resistance, tying everyone's arcs in the movie together through one line.
The rebellion is reborn today. The war is just beginning, and I will not be the last Jedi.
This is one of my favorite lines in all of Star Wars. The way Rian Johnson ties everything in the movie together through Luke ends Luke's story in the best way imaginable. I wouldn't have had it any other way. This is the best possible way to end Luke Skywalker. But the scene doesn't end there, because of course Kylo has to declare that he's gonna kill both Luke and Rey, because he's still so convinced in this moment that Luke is going to lose this fight that Luke won like 5 minutes ago. And so Luke just hits Kylo with the biggest middle finger of all time.
Strike me down in anger and I'll always be with you. Just like your father.
And Luke doesn't just say this because it'll upset Kylo. He says it because it's true. Rian Johnson leaves Kylo Ren in a really interesting place in The Last Jedi, and we can see this based off the 2 drafts of Episode 9. The original draft, Duel of the Fates, saw Kylo be the big bad for the trilogy, whereas The Rise of Skywalker sees Kylo get redeemed. The way Rian leaves Kylo is where he can really go either way, because as we see in this movie, he is stepping further into the dark, but the shards of the good are still there. He's still traumatized by the fact that he killed his father. He cannot bring himself to kill his mother. Luke haunts him every day. And I think that's why his redemption in the next movie actually works for me. But this leads to Kylo trying to kill Luke, realizing that Luke is just a force projection, and that this whole thing was just a ploy for the Resistance to get out safely. This was no fight at all. My favorite tidbit about this scene is that once Luke steps onto the battlefield, not a single person, Resistance or First Order, dies for the rest of the movie except Luke Skywalker. And if that is not the most Jedi thing a Jedi can do, I don't know what is. I know it's a different scene, so I'm technically cheating now, but I can't not end this video without talking about Luke's actual death. A moment that mirrors him when he was a boy on a farm on Tatooine. And when he looks to the twin suns one final time, he fades into the Force, knowing that the Resistance will be okay, and that Rey has grown beyond what Luke himself could ever be, and the legacy of the Jedi lives on. And with that, I'm gonna go watch Star Wars.